My Cody. I'm gonna try to do this video as quick as possible, so because I'm at work and the phone always rings. Um, Real quick, the question is how do they do holographic airplanes and holographic fake UFOs and all that stuff? I don't have the exact answer, but I'll give you my best guess, considering that I filmed them for the last 2 years. Um, First of all, they have a three-dimensional holographic projector. They use a hologram that has a laser beam, which is coherent light. It's in phase light. That laser beam would then have a beam splitter or a silver backed mirror. They split the laser beam in half. You have a reference beam, and you have a beam that goes through an object called an object beam. A hologram is like imagining a big piece of clay would go around my entire body. A hologram optically gives the information of the image by, like, imagine seeing a big mold of clay going around your entire body. Basically, it's taking a snapshot three-dimensionally of what your body looks like from an optical standpoint. So if you had a car, imagine taking a big wad of clay and going over the entire car, and then using the information of the image of the car that molded around the clay that molded around the car. It could then produce that on a two-dimensional plane. So holograms, in essence, you're basically taking a higher dimensional reality and you're immersing it into a lower dimensional realm. So you are able to see three dimensions on a two-dimensional plane, or two dimensions on a single dimensional plane, etc. It's really cool. All right, so the reference beam, the object beam, then they come together and they hit a photographic plate. Now, they've been able to do this in the 60s and 70s. They can actually create color. They can actually create movement, etc., stuff like that. So what they do is they take that laser beam, and this is very complex stuff, guys, and they take the holographic projector and they send that information to a satellite. The satellite also collects that information from the three-dimensional holographic projector, and what it then does is it then uses an algorithm called a complex Fourier transform. The complex Fourier transform is like an endpoint and a starting point of a line that goes around in a circle. That circle, in essence, creates a sine wave. So as it rotates around the whole circle, you can have a maximum point of a wave and a lower point of a wave. So it's going to have a certain nice coherent position, a wave that's just very equal. And it has a certain length, and it has a certain trough, and it has a certain peak. Now imagine taking another endpoint and start point and have another circle that goes around. Now you have two circles that are kind of working in tandem. Well, the more and more you do that, the more and more detailed a picture can be. And in essence, with all these different starting points and different types of mathematical, starting points on how big you want the circles to be, and you can have multiple starting points, you can create an image of a face. All these circles can actually create straight lines, believe it or not. So when they take the holographic three-dimensional projector and they take the image, and then they use that and they put it into an algorithm of a complex Fourier transform, they're then able to create a three-dimensional image in real-time space using a volumetric display with parallax binocular view. And the volumetric display is something that the satellite creates. And then now you got a 3D image, and what you'll see is light beams called a LiDAR holographic beam. That's a controllable light beam that looks like this glowing Play-Doh type material. And what that does is that's actually the Fourier transform complex algorithm, along with the holographic three-dimensional projector that's creating the plane. It's growing right in front of you if you know where to look for them. And then there you go. They do that in real time, in real three-dimensional space here in the simulated reality that you live in. So the reason why you have decay on these holographic planes as they're flying away, where the tail starts to turn like a different color or starts to get shorter, or some of the details like the engines start to disappear and ball up and turn to spheres, and the windows start to gel and all of a sudden they start to disappear, that's because the smaller the endpoint starting point on for the sine waves of the complex Fourier transfer, the smaller those little circles are that are creating an overall image. The smaller those little detail waves are with different starting and end points, the more rapid the decay is. So the longer the wave function of the Fourier transform, like let's say for instance like a red color wave, right? The better off it is for not decaying. The smaller violet waves or the blue waves or purple, that's very short waves, and smaller ones and more rapid, that has a faster decay rate, and that's why you see these different manipulated type of deconstruction of holographic images. As it gets further away, it starts to deteriorate because the image is only going to last so long. Once the holographic plane gets away from you and it doesn't realize that it's around, and it realizes it's not in front of anybody, and it's kind of higher up in the sky, and it's going over the ocean, or if it's going over the Everglades, or an area where it's not very populated, the holographic plane can turn into just one glowing light. The plane disappears entirely. It doesn't have to be there. But it does reemerge when it's landing or taking off. And the last thing it does through the volumetric display is that it's able to pull photons from the surrounding environment, just like the moon does. The moon looks like the blue sky because it pulls photons from the blue sky. So the moon's always going to replicate the atmosphere and the color that's surrounding it. Nighttime, it'll be a certain color. It could be blue, red, green. The moon changes all different type of colors. That's a hologram, by the way. The planes do the same thing. So we got this technology not from we got it from aliens, but we got it from the creator of the simulation, which are probably aliens that are located from a different reality. You live in a simulated reality, by the way. So the planes, holographic planes, they always emulate the blueness of the sky, the tone of the blueness, or the darkness, or the purpleness of dawn, or the purple color of when and the violet colors of just before the sun is rising or setting. These planes have a tendency to mask the environment that they're flying in because they're pulling the photons from that space-time. But don't fool yourself. They can take those photons from the space-time continuum that's around it, the space-time domain that it's inside of, and it can change the colors into anything it wants through a volumetric display. That's real-time color display that's happening right in front of your eyes. I have video of that. I've showed it before. And they can create American Airlines right in front of you by pulling the photons. So when they use their headlights for the plane, it's not a headlight. It's actually a vacuum that's sucking in the particles. You think it's a headlight, but it's actually a vacuum sucking in the particles. Also, clouds will show up out of nowhere, and all of a sudden they'll go right into the holographic plane. They're just pulling the particles. They're fooling you optically. They're drawing in the space-time domain from the complex Fourier transform to create photons, to give it the sine waves of the transform of the algorithm of starting and endpoints to create the image it wants to do and the color it wants to do. That's my best guess of what and how it works. Lastly, chemtrails are nothing more than, again, holographic complex Fourier transform airplanes that are covering the real airplanes. They're spraying barium and they're spraying aluminum and other particles. But the reason why they're doing this is for a couple reasons. Weather modification, but for two, enhancing the atmosphere to make holographic imaging more realistic, more opaque, more viscosity. So that's what the barium is for. Still also silver iodine as well to create, rain or disturbances in the atmosphere through moisture. There's a lot of things they can do, but those holographic airplanes are not the real planes that are shooting those sprays. There's a plane that's hidden inside that three-dimensional holographic bubble, and they're hiding it so this way we can't get the serial number and locate who these people are and where they're located. It's a disguise. That's it. UFO Mike Cody, I know that's a mouthful, but I got to go. I don't have that much time. Thanks for listening. And thanks for asking the question. Please subscribe.